Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. Today we are taking a look at how car dealers can contribute to sustainability and lowering their carbon footprint, something I'm sure we all agreed on that we all need to be doing. So, but how and why should dealers be doing this? So joining me to discuss more about this is Looker's Chief Operating Officer Duncan McPhee, Auto Trader's Commercial Director Ian Plummer, and Dave Colburn, Founder and Managing Director of the Carbon Literacy Project. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, good morning.
Hello, good to be here.
Super. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out today to join us. Ian, thanks for coming back to Car Dealer Live as always. Really good to have you on, and a special welcome to Duncan and Dave, as this is the first time on the show. Duncan, let me just start with you. Now, it's always good to catch up with a leading dealership group. 2021 was a very good year for you with very impressive profits. How is this financial year going so far for you?
Yeah, thanks, James. I mean, 2022 is going really, really well. Yeah, very similar to 2021. Not without its challenges, of course, with everything that's going on around the economy and the overall environment, trading environment. But no, it's going very, very well. Thank you.
Yeah. And just loosely, what are your predictions for 2023? Do you think, with this? Well, we're in recession. Do you think it's going to have it's going to take a toll on your business?
I think it would be fair to say that there will be some impact. Certainly we're seeing a softening in consumer demand, but the upside is that the industry has got very, very strong order banks, and we're going to carry those order banks into 2023. Hopefully, we'll see an improvement in supply. And that will hopefully have a positive impact. And like everything, I'm always glass very much half full, very optimistic, and it's all about controlling the controllables. And we've got plenty of things we can be controlling, in spite of the various kind of headwinds that we might face.
Yeah.
James, can I just butt in one second? I think it's a really great question. We get asked all the time. We ask all our partners, all the time what they perceive for the future and so on. And I think, without denying the challenges, the understandable difficulties that are going to be out there for many people and for the industry and for the economy more broadly. If you think about automotive and how different this sort of recessionary period feels as we enter it compared to any other one, let's say great financial crisis of when we were back in 2008, normally we'd have been looking at a situation where we'd have lots of new cars in pipelines all over the place and a cheese grater that's still churning them out. Lots of used cars, including late plate stocks that are filling up used car forecourts for retailers. We'd have discount levels that would be only increasing to generate more demand, marketing expenditure only increasing to do the same, and not much of an order bank. Whereas today we've got none of those things. We've got very little stock in the pipeline. We've got a healthy level of marketing spend, and discounting has been reduced. Retention of margin is pretty good, and we've got a cushion of a new car order bank for franchise retailers in particular that does give us a level of confidence if the recession isn't too deep or long, that we can probably weather it reasonably well. Remains to be seen, of course, but I think we should be much more optimistic as we enter this one than we would ordinarily have been as we entered a previous recession.
Yeah, no, I think you make a very good point there, Ian, and I can just about remember the last recession. I was pretty young, but I can just about remember it. But I think this one does feel a little bit different, particularly so because of the green agenda and this massive push towards electric cars, and there is an affordability and a cost issue attached to all of this, isn't there? But Dave, let me just turn to you now. Just for our dealer viewers, they might not be very aware of what you do. So could you just explain what the Carbon Literacy Project does, please?
Sure. The Carbon Literacy Project is a charity, and we roll out a day's worth of learning about climate change. But it's a unique approach to climate change, and it's not us that's saying that. The United Nations actually said that about us when they gave us an award a couple of years ago. It was put together by pulling together a group of 30 people and organizations and saying to them, what do we need to do with people so they get it on climate change, realize they can do stuff and start acting? And that was actually 10 years ago. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. That group of 30 was drawn from all walks of life. So community, public sector, from government, but from business, SMEs, medium-sized enterprises, huge corporations. And we came up as a group of 30 organizations with a formula for a day's worth of learning.
that was consistent everywhere, and that we as an organization would accredit with a certificate, so the quality of training was there and was being delivered consistently, but would be unique everywhere because it needed to be adapted for each audience, because the things that need to be done by someone in the public sector are wildly different to someone in the automotive industry. So we as a charity took this day's worth of learning and then started to cascade it out over hundreds, then thousands, and now tens of thousands of learners, mainly initially in the UK, but now globally. And that's what we do as a project.
Yeah, and I can imagine, Dave, that you're talking to all sorts of businesses from all sorts of sectors, but the motor trade has got a particularly difficult problem in all of this, hasn't it? Because by the very nature of the products that it creates. So, I mean, what are you hearing from those in the motor trade and the motor industry at large?
Well, there is. That's the big elephant in the room historically for the automotive industry, was that we as a society have run our vehicles for the last century on fossil fuels. So we know the science is now unquestionable. We've got to stop using fossil fuels as rapidly as possible, and that felt like an existential threat to the automotive industry, given that all the products ran on fossil fuels. So the good news is the industry now does have electric vehicles and other products, other ways of fueling vehicles, that mean there's a real product that the industry can roll out. So, the industry has taken a bit of a kicking over the years because of its huge carbon footprint as an industry and of the products that it's selling. But I like to flip that around the other way and say the industry does have a huge carbon footprint, but that's also a huge opportunity to reduce carbon quickly, given that the industry now has the products to enable it to do it. So the challenge to the industry is now to engage with this process. Now it has a raft of really good solutions to roll out those products, to not stand in the way of the rolling out of those products, but also to look at what it does as organizations, because each organization itself has its own carbon footprint in the way that it operates, the suppliers it uses, how it moves its products, its people, what it chooses to buy and what it chooses not to. So there's a raft of things the industry can do that actually collectively will make a really big difference to us nationally and internationally.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be able to hear a few of those shortly. But Ian, COP27 is just finished, and sustainability and lowering our collective carbon footprint is very much the front of mind for everybody. I mean, what impact do you think retailers can have on this? I mean, what role can they, and of course the industry, play in all of this?
I think we can all have a massive contribution to the challenges ahead of us. So COP27 wasn't, by all accounts, a huge success. I don't think there was a fundamental recommitment to the 1.5 degrees maximum warming that we need to see if we're going to sort of maintain this the health of our planet. There were some positive steps, but I think the point I've often taken from this sort of sustainability agenda is that if billions of us, let alone hopefully just let's start with millions in the UK, do lots of small things, we will have a huge impact. If we wait for other people to do maybe bigger things, then we may be waiting a little bit too long. So we all need to act now. I think Dave has got a very impressive slogan for that. I'll let him add to the conversation in a moment. But as an industry, we need to recognise we are a massive part of that problem. The transport sector in the UK accounts for 24% of the UK's overall emissions. Road transport is the major part of all of that. So we are part in automotive of the problem. And we need to turn that on its head by two things: what we can do to change the type of car that we, or van or motorhome, whatever, that we move around in, and that we're on that journey. There's a lot to be done. It's a long-term transition, but we're definitely on that journey. But also change how we operate. If we do, we can be part of the solution, be seen by consumers, for example, out there who are keener than ever to engage with brands, retailers, partners who are doing the right thing. We'll likely engage better with our teams, our own employees who want to see us as companies doing the right thing. So we need to turn the dynamic on its head. So not just change the mode of transport, but change also the engagement we have as individuals and as companies behind, notably in this case, carbon literacy, because it's the best way to unleash, we found, the passion, the energy, and the commitment of everybody in the UK. Let's start with our own companies to really do something different, because that energy really is there, we find.
Yeah, Dave, I mean, I think there was an overwhelming feeling, wasn't there, from COP27, that the messages weren't quite as big, and some of the practices which are promised aren't quite so binding this time round. But I suppose the important message that we can all take from that is, despite what was said at COP27, we can all make little individual changes, and businesses can make small changes as well for the better, can't they?
I think they can make small changes and big changes, in truth. There was the government chief scientist said a long while ago, you know, if all of us do a little bit, together we'll end up with a little. And actually, we all need to do a lot. The messages from COP27, it was no less binding than previously, but the hope had been that it would be even more binding, and we didn't get that bit. So it wasn't stronger than what had been said previously. We have a collective challenge to try and keep global temperatures below 1.5 degrees centigrade rise, and we're already over a degree towards that, 1.5 degrees. Bad things happen at 1.5 degrees. If we don't make that, even worse things happen. So the focus is still there.
Yeah.
There was some other good stuff that did come out of it, but the big message for me that I'd share is governments are talking about this, and they're inching forward, but they're only inching forward. It's going too slowly. We can't wait for governments to sort this out. If governments do stuff to help us, that helps, but we have to take collective responsibility, and industry and the business sector and us all as individuals need to take responsibility and do stuff, and we can't afford to wait for governments anymore. So action now is the thing that's important. The slogan that Ian was referencing is, there's something we used it a lot in our project, the words, and we shared it with others, and everybody said it's a good slogan. And it's start where you are, do what you can. Don't freak out about the scale of everything and all these things you could do, and as well, it's all mind-boggling. Pick some things, start where you are, do what you can, and then do something else, and then do something else. And if we all do that, we all get moving. And if all of us do it, suddenly the change starts to multiply.
Yeah.
But Dave, like you said, I think this is one of those rare cases actually where we shouldn't make things overcomplicated in our mind. And this is a relatively rare opportunity where doing the right thing for our people, our own people, or people in the wider community, but also for the planet, is exactly the right thing we should be doing for our business. You know, the safety and security of today's jobs, tomorrow's healthy, profitable businesses, and so on. So ultimately, also for the bottom line, things do converge, I think, in the right direction. We don't need to think these things as being competing. Is it planet or pocket, as I sometimes say? They should go hand in hand.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, I entirely get what you're saying. But it is a big commitment, though, isn't it? And dealers listening to this who have been trading in very much the same ways like they have been for decades, they might not have much experience or knowledge in lowering their carbon emissions, and they might feel overwhelmed. I mean, is there any support for businesses out there that, you know, they want to make a change, but they're not actually sure where they can start?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is, I wouldn't frame it as a really big challenge, because we can start with small steps and then accelerate from there. But there is a carbon literacy toolkit specifically designed for the automotive industry. This came about because we'd been funded by government to create toolkits for all sorts of areas for the public sector. So every local authority in the UK has a government-funded carbon literacy toolkit. Every university, Department for Education is planning to roll it out in all schools, in the NHS. And we worked with lots of corporate partners, and we'd been working with Auto Trader for a little while. But Auto Trader approached us and said, we've been using carbon literacy to get our people started, because that's what carbon literacy does. It's not all the answers, but it's enough of a briefing so people understand the issue and can start taking action in their jobs that day, right where they are. So Auto Trader approached us and said, if we funded you, could you create a toolkit with us and with other partners in the automotive industry that we could all share right across the industry to get all of us moving, so that it can be relatively low cost, takes away all the barriers and the complications for organizations of all sizes, from the largest to the smallest, so we can all start doing things together and collaborate. Because as Ian says, you know, it saves us all money. It's good for the pocket. It's good for the business. It's actually good for the planet as well. Is there a way of accelerating it? And the carbon literacy toolkit that has been created with Auto Trader and Lookers and a number of other partners is a really quick and easy way to get that whole journey started.
Yeah. Duncan, I mean, I was very interested to hear that you were part of this, because I wasn't actually aware of that. So what has been your involvement, and why is sustainability so high up on your agenda as a business at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, James, it's, you know, the kind of ever-increasing awareness around what is happening to our planet and the need to act, you know, is such that we as a business need to act. You know, we're a big business. You know, the transport sector is one of the main contributors to greenhouse gases. And we sell a lot of those vehicles that hits the road. So, what can we do? There's the responsibility element, acting responsibly for our colleagues now and in the future, our families now and in the future. There's the reputational element. We want to be doing the right thing for the environment, not just seem to be doing it, but actually want to take that action. And there's the cost and commercial element as well. But it's quite exciting. It's when you think about the cultural element, we've got 6,500 people at Lookers that we can help with increasing their awareness, their knowledge. We can all take action together. And the carbon literacy project, in conjunction with Autotrader, it was a great springboard for us to really start to accelerate what we are doing and how we contribute towards it. We've now got a couple of hundred carbon ninjas, as we call them. I'm one of them, and we've taken a number of initiatives as a result. As an example, we come up with a really great initiative. Sounds quite simple. It is actually very simple, but it's called the Big Switch Off, and that's just about switching stuff off. And as a result of that, we've seen a 10% reduction in our electricity usage. We've seen a 20% reduction in our gas usage. And we've seen between kind of £500,000 and £250,000 saving year to date as well. So there's that commercial element I was talking about as well. But also things like electric vehicles. We really are accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles. I drive an electric vehicle. The senior team drive electric vehicles. We've launched a salary sacrifice scheme, which is EV only, to try and encourage our colleagues into electric vehicles. Listen, the carbon literacy project, I guess if you're kind of summing it up, it's kind of arming our people with the right information to be able to take the right action. And as I say, as a big company, we feel we can make a significant difference.
Yeah. I mean, Duncan, some naysayers may say, well, it's very easy for a large listed dealer group, large dealer group to do that kind of thing because it's well funded. But some of the things that you mentioned there are things which independent dealers and dealers of all sizes can do, isn't it? So everybody should be thinking about this, really, shouldn't they?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, a lot of these, as I say, that initiative, the Big Switch Off, it is so simple and everybody can do it. But, we've kind of built on that. So we've now got appointing energy champions, and they're there. It's a bit like the parent around the house kind of constantly running after their kids saying, switch this off and switch that off. These energy champions will run around the business, consistently challenging our colleagues, tasking them to be more responsible with their kind of usage of energy. We've got an LED swap out program. So that's all about identifying all of the kind of lights we've got in the business and just changing them to LED. We're starting to look at solar. Now that is when expense comes into it, but you look at the longer term benefits of solar. So there's lots of things you can do which don't cost a lot, but there's equal things you can do that does require investment.
Yeah, and dealerships, especially the larger showrooms, they can have solar panels on the roof, they can have vegetation and all sorts of plants around the site as well, can't they? So it's about thinking a little bit differently sometimes, isn't it?
It is, and I think one of the areas that really surprised me was when we started to look at energy, is how much energy we burn in the evening when we're closed. 33% of our energy was being used in the evening. Now, what a waste that is. And again, since we've really started to focus on this, we've dramatically reduced that. And you see it all the time. You drive by retail outlets and they're lit up at night time with no customers around them, no colleagues in them. So why burn that energy unnecessarily?
Yeah. Dave, I mean, contributing to the collective reduction of our carbon output is, I mean, it's obviously the reason enough for the industry to be taking it seriously. But are there any other reasons the industry should be taking all of this seriously, do you think?
There are all sorts of benefits to doing this. So absolutely, carbon, for me, that's at the heart of it. We have to deal with this crisis. But as Ian has already alluded to, actually doing lots of these things, and Duncan the same, many of these actions that are helping save the planet actually save money. So in a cost of living crisis and going into, as we appear to be, recession, actually reducing overheads at the same time is a good thing. And the fact it saves the planet as well, you could argue is a bonus. But one of the big things is that carbon literacy, because of the way it's designed, actually empowers people. So Duncan's example of, effectively turning the lights off or thinking about it, very often initiatives have to come from management and come down into an organization. Carbon literacy is done not by the green specialists, it's done by everybody in an organization, because everybody has some level of agency, something they can do. And the idea is to empower everybody in an organization. So they look around and think, well, I can do this bit. So, it's down to me to turn the lights off in the workshop because the manager's not there or he's gone home or whatever. So, okay, so I'll do that. And everybody in the organization starts to become, if you like, a carbon champion and save carbon and save money and do better things. And because people are more empowered and feel more bought in, they feel more positive about it. Climate change is not a happy topic to talk about. We're looking at really bad outcomes globally. So people think, oh God, it's that depressing climate change thing again. I don't want to talk about it. But the overwhelming reaction from people in the complete carbon literacy training is that they're actually really positive, happy and uplifted. And it's because we're often frightened about climate change. But they always say the antidote to anxiety is action. Well, the antidote to climate anxiety is climate action. So if people leave a course thinking, right, I understand all of this stuff that I've seen on the news and why it's so scary, but I realize now I can do something. And not only that, but as part of my day, I've pledged and decided what my first steps are going to be. So it's deliberately positive and empowering. And actually in a workforce and in a team, that's a really good thing, particularly right now where we are in the world.
Yeah,
it's quite infectious as well.
Sorry, carry on. Sorry,
David. It's quite infectious. When you do talk about it and you become aware of it, it's interesting how quickly people, find a real interest and a passion for it. We had one of our colleagues up in Glasgow who just emailed me out the blue to say that he had, or to ask for permission to complete Keep Scotland Beautiful module, which certifies him. And I said, no, absolutely, not a problem at all. Of course you can. You don't even need to ask for permission. It's a great thing to do. But something like that would never, ever have happened if we weren't openly talking about it in the business. So, it's something that, as I say, it's really, really infectious and it carries on throughout the whole company.
Yeah, I mean, that's really lovely to hear, Duncan, because of course, that dovetails with a wider point of people in the workplace should feel as though they should be able to talk about anything. And if there's anything on their mind that they feel as though the company could be doing better or isn't addressing, they should feel as though they've got the space to actually say that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So James, it's probably worth covering. We just kind of glossed over the fact there's this toolkit. So we should probably actually tell people, what is the toolkit and what's in it.
Yes. Yeah.
So the toolkit itself is a carbon literacy course. It's already been accredited, so there are no costs involved in accrediting it, and there's no cost in you don't have to buy the course. It's actually free. And any competent communicator can take the materials and deliver them to colleagues. So the idea of this is that you don't have to particularly for SMEs, you don't have to buy inexpensive trainers necessarily. You may be able to do it with your own people. But it's quite tricky to deliver a course just completely cold. So there's a trainer manual that comes with the toolkit. It says, this is how you deliver it to people. Do these things, don't do these things, they don't work. And it's deliberately intended as a kind of an arm around the shoulders to whoever's going to deliver the course so they can deliver it to colleagues. But there's actually a lot of support for this from AutoTrader. It's available free of charge to anybody in the automotive industry. But AutoTrader every month is running open courses. So 2 or 3 people from any organization can attend a course either virtually or in person, mixture of courses from month to month, and actually take the carbon literacy course themselves and receive it as a learner. So they experience it, get carbon literate themselves, and then that informs them better to help deliver it to colleagues. So those courses are available every month on a rolling basis. They get booked up very quickly. December, I think, is already fully booked, but people can look at January and beyond. And there is now a community of organizations working on sustainability, which has been convened by AutoTrader, who many of whom are doing carbon literacy, not necessarily all of them, but within the industry are working together to say, what, we all win if we do this. Our businesses win, all our businesses win, and the industry wins, and society wins, and the planet wins. So why do we not collaborate on this and start working together? So all of that toolkit stuff is available free of charge. If people want to know more, if they email automotive@carbonliteracy.com, or if they go to carbonliteracy.com, it's our website, they can track through and find the automotive toolkit and contact us through that way. That's a good way of engaging, and obviously we'd encourage people to get involved.
Ian, final word to you on this. Just explain to us what your support of this has done for Auto Trader, and are you actively talking to your dealer partners about this, and are you encouraging them to take part?
Well, we're actively talking to anybody and everybody in automotive. So dealer partners, absolutely, for sure. Brands, finance houses, leasing companies, parts suppliers, screen parts players. Cinetic, for example, are a great partner of Carbon Literacy as well. It goes right across the board. Anybody and everybody would hopefully join Dave's call to action there and get together with one of those sessions. I'd urge everybody to bear in mind also what Dave highlighted and Duncan's pointed out really well, is that there's no cost to doing this. It's not like one of those training courses. I've been a retailer. You hate your teams going off site. It takes out a bunch of people from being able to do anything in the dealership that day. Their productivity is gone. You have to pay an expensive training course. It's not that. It's your own people. You will find we don't have any trainers coming into it. Of course we don't. We have our own people who are very passionate about this, who find the time to train the trainer and then spread the good news. But as Dave mentioned as well, getting together with like-minded folks, we'll gladly do that with anybody else at these broader sustainability events. Just get in touch with us and please join that debate, because this isn't a zero-sum game. We're not competing against each other. You may be a dealer group that competes against lookers, but you don't compete with lookers on sustainability. You work with everybody in the industry. It's a collective challenge. And I just highlight another point around the size point you made earlier, James. We had at the last event that Dave just mentioned, a gentleman called Rich Robertson, who comes from a place called Claris Motor Park in the West Country, who's by his own admission, a smaller dealer compared to the likes of the might of lookers, but is very engaged on this journey. And he took a very simple approach to things. He doesn't necessarily worry about measuring everything. We as Auto Trader PLC, we're committed to the Science-Based Targets Initiative to make sure we are playing our part in the 1.5 degree challenge we talked about. We are committed to net zero, but we want to do much more. So we get people like Rich telling us his story. And he describes simple equations such as, I work in a workshop where I take a tire off a car and I can see that tire on the ground. What do I do with it? Chuck it away? Or do I think there's probably a better use for that tire? You don't have to make it complicated. You do have to be bothered to find that better use for that particular tire. And it's just one of many great examples he shared. And he did find better use for that tire. They're ground down and put on sports pitches. Those little bits of black you get if you ever play football on a five-a-side pitch, that's the kind of place that they're coming from. So that's just a simple day-to-day example from a small dealer who didn't wait for somebody to get into his business and tell him that it was good for his team to be engaged with this, good for his customers because they'll see he's engaged with things that are important to them, and definitely good for the long-term health of his business. That's fundamentally why we think it's a good thing for us to get involved in trying to share the message and use our influence and our voice to try and get other people on board that journey, because it is, hopefully, as we've got across today, an important journey that we should all be fully committed to.
James, I just need to clarify one little thing. The toolkit is free. The trainer manual is free. There's 3 days trainings, all sorts of Auto Trader. By the way, Auto Trader is the first company to approach us in this way of all of our industrial partners to do this. So it's a unique initiative that they're taking. But there is a small cost. There is a cost to certifying individuals as being carbon literate. It's because we're a charity. That's our income stream. That's the only income stream that we get from doing this work. So it's for huge mega dealers like lookers, it's £30 per learner. It's £20 for SMEs that are smaller. But train 10 of your staff and it's £200. It really isn't a significant cost.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know too much about this before this call, so thank you for piquing my interest. I'm definitely going to go and find out some more info now. Dave, just as a reminder for people, where can they find out more information?
By email, just email automotive@carbonliteracy.com, or you can go to the website carbonliteracy.com, or you can just hunt for Carbon Literacy on social media. We do lots of stuff on Facebook and on Twitter, and you can track us down that way. Or speak to your contacts at Auto Trader, because they will happily put you in touch with us through that route as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a really interesting Car Dealer Live. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
James.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye-bye.